I call this meeting to order. Welcome to meeting number 10 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Public Accounts. Pursuant to Standing Order 1083G, the committee is meeting today to undertake a study on Report 2, Natural Health Products, Health Canada. La réunion d'aujourd'hui se déroule sous forme hybride, conformément à l'ordre de la Chambre adopté le jeudi 25 novembre 2021.
So the meeting is a hybrid meeting. According to the order of the House, the proceedings are broadcast on the website, and the web broadcasting will always show the person who's speaking. At the recommendations of the health authorities and the orders of the Bureau of Internal Economy, so that we can keep our health and safety, all who participate in the meeting in person should wear their masks.
To ensure an orderly meeting, I would like to outline a few rules to follow. Les députés et les témoins peuvent s'exprimer dans la...
Members can speak in the language of their choice. Interpretation services are available for this meeting. You have the choice at the bottom of your screen between floor English or French. If you lose interpretation, please let me know immediately, and we will make sure interpretation can start again before we proceed. Please use the raise hand function on the platform, which is under the toolbar, if you want to speak or signal the president.
The whole committee is meeting in person or in a committee room. Before speaking, please wait until I recognize you by name. If you are on the video conference, please click on the microphone icon to unmute yourself. For those in the room, your microphones will be controlled as normal by the proceeding and verifications officer. When speaking, please speak slowly and clearly. When you are not speaking, your mic should be on mute. Je vous rappelle que toutes les observations.
I remind you that all observations from the committee members and witnesses must go through the chair.
To maintain a consolidated order of speaking for all members, whether they are participating virtually or in person. I'd now like to welcome our witnesses, and they include from the Office of the Auditor General, Jerry V. DeMarco, Commissioner of the Environment and Sustainable Development, and Heather Miller, Assistant Auditor General. From the Department of Health, I have Dr. Stephen Lewis, the Deputy Minister, Pamela Ang Tin, Assistant Deputy Minister, and Lindsay Hollett, Director General, Health Product Compliance. Before I begin, I'd just like to let members know that Dr. Lucas will have to leave the meeting at 12:15. So if you have questions for the good doctor and who is the deputy minister, I'd ask that you be aware of this limitation and focus your questions on him for the next hour and a little bit. And this is due to a scheduling conflict that we agreed to respect. So thank you for being here today. And Mr. DeMarco, you have the floor for 5 minutes. Please proceed.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Nous sommes heureux de nous présenter devant votre comité pour discuter de notre déposé à la Chambre de communes en avril 2021. Je tiens d'abord à souligner que cette audience se déroule.
I want to start by acknowledging that this hearing is taking place on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. Joining me today is Heather Miller, Assistant Auditor General, who was responsible for this audit. Canada began regulating natural health products in 2004. At that time, the federal government wanted to balance consumer safety with freedom of choice and access to traditional medicine. To be lawfully sold in Canada, natural health products must be licensed by Health Canada. This is to ensure the products are safe and effective. Health Canada considers a natural health product to be safe when the product's benefits outweigh the risks, so long as it is used as intended. The department considers a health natural product to be effective if the evidence supports that the product will provide the benefits described in the claims. We focused our work on how Health Canada regulated the industry to make sure that the products were safe and effective. We looked at the licensing of manufacturers and the licensing of products. We further considered the monitoring of the marketplace once products were available for sale. Overall, we found weaknesses in Health Canada's oversight. We were concerned that too much reliance was placed upfront on licensing approvals, but not enough was done to inspect manufacturing facilities. Inspections are meant to ensure that products are manufactured according to good manufacturing practices, for example, in a sterile environment when appropriate.
1,000 natural health product licenses in existence in Canada at the time of our audit, it is important to know where, how manufactured. Natural health product license holders are required to inform the department which licensed facilities manufacture their products before selling them. However, fewer than 5% did so. This makes it extremely difficult to adequately monitor the production of these products as a whole. When Health Canada conducted site inspections, it found problems with product manufacturing and product quality. In nearly half of its inspections, the department took regulatory action in response to health risks. Generally speaking, once products were on the market, there was very little monitoring, and it was largely complaints-driven. Health Canada's monitoring was insufficient to ensure that the label on products matched the product that was licensed for sale. We found that 88% of the products we examined carried potentially misleading information, including health claims that were not authorized by Health Canada. These included claims that products relieved fatigue, enhanced endurance, or burned fat, as well as having incorrect dosage information. We also found that the department did not do enough to prevent the sale of unlicensed products. We were completing our examination work as the COVID-19 pandemic began. We expanded the scope of our audit to include the work the department was doing related to natural health products and COVID-19. While we found some issues with the process, Health Canada responded to the urgent needs for COVID-19 products, such as alcohol-based hand sanitizers. The department temporarily waived compliance with the specific regulatory requirements to afford Canadian manufacturers some flexibility without increasing the risk of serious safety concerns. It also increased its oversight of the products marketed for COVID-19. Health Canada has agreed with all 5 recommendations provided in our report. Mr. Chair, this concludes my opening remarks. We'll be pleased to answer any questions the committee may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. DeMarco. I now call on Dr. Lucas to make your opening statement. You have the floor for 5 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'd like to thank the committee members for the opportunity to appear before you today. Joining me today are Pam Ong-Ting, Associate Assistant Deputy Minister of the Health Products and Food Branch, which is responsible for product and site licensing, as well as monitoring of advertising, and Lindsay Hollett, Director General of the Health Product Compliance for the Regulatory Operations and Enforcement Branch, which supports the compliance and enforcement of natural health products. Natural health products are used by Canadians daily to care for themselves and their families. They include vitamin supplements, minerals, probiotics, herbal remedies, homeopathic products, and traditional products such as traditional Chinese medicines. Natural health products also include frequently used products such as toothpaste, mouthwash, and sunscreen. Particularly relevant in the context of COVID-19, they also include alcohol-based hand sanitizers. Au Canada, ces produits sont réglementés en vertu de la...
In Canada, these products are regulated under the Food and Drugs Act and the Natural Health Products Regulations. Through the Natural Health Products Program, Health Canada provides oversight to ensure that the natural health products available for sale in Canada are safe and effective.
Found both strengths and areas for improvement. The audit found that Health Canada licensed products appropriately based on evidence of safety and efficacy. The audit also found that when an issue was brought to Health Canada's attention, immediate action was taken. It also identified areas for improvement, such as the need for increased oversight on the quality of natural health products, greater monitoring of labels and advertising, improving labeling, compliance and enforcement activities. The recommendations validated key gaps the department had already identified and started working on to address prior to the audit. The audit supports the direction Health Canada is taking to strengthen the oversight of these products. To
address the recommendation to improve quality oversight, Health Canada has taken steps to require site license applicants to demonstrate compliance with good manufacturing practices, such as by requiring test results instead of relying on an attestation-based approach.
2021, Health Canada launched the Natural Health Products Good Manufacturing Practices Inspection Pilot to promote and verify industry compliance with the regulatory requirements through inspections of license holders across Canada. Results of the pilot to date are demonstrating a high rate of non-compliance and a need to further industry education, as well as ongoing proactive, risk-based oversight. In this regard, Health Canada is on track to implement a permanent good manufacturing practices inspection program to increase the oversight of NHPs and better protect Canadians. The department is building on work that began during the pandemic to expand its oversight of online advertising to natural health products to ensure advertisements are consistent with the product license. Additionally, the department recently consulted on a regulatory proposal to improve product labeling, with the objective to ensure that labels are clear, consistent, and legible for consumers to support safe use of these products. In response to the audit, Health Canada indicated its intent to propose new tools to strengthen the department's ability to deter and address non-compliance, notably the extension of powers under the Protecting Canadians from Unsafe Drugs Act to natural health products. Known as Vanessa's Law, and which received royal assent in 2014, this law strengthened Health Canada's ability to collect information and take quick and appropriate action when a serious health risk is identified for therapeutic products and medical devices. However, these authorities do not exist for natural health products, and as a result, we lack the authority to force a recall or a label change of a product, even in the case of a serious health risk such as contamination. In our departmental response to the audit findings, Health Canada reaffirmed the need for sustainable and predictable funding through fees charged to industry to support increased oversight of these products. Natural health products are the only line of health products for which all regulatory activities are funded by the public. Revenues from fees would support pre- and post-market regulatory activities, including inspections of the facilities that make them. In closing, Health Canada's priority is the health and safety of Canadians. For many Canadians, natural health products are an important part of maintaining a healthy lifestyle. Health Canada welcomes the Commissioner's recommendations and is committed to continuous improvement of the NHP program to ensure that the products sold in Canada are safe and effective. Encore une fois, j'aimerais remercier le comité.
Again, I would like to thank the committee for inviting me. I will be pleased to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much to both our witnesses. I now turn to the official opposition. Mr. Lawrence, you have 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'd just like to start with a brief statement, if I could. I just want to start off by saying, in 2 years of on public accounts, this is perhaps one of the most damning reports that I've read. While as a conservative, I have some skepticism with respect to government intervention and regulations. This seems to have set up the worst of both worlds, where we are peddling to the public a false sense of security. It should be said in here on the first page, actually, of the report, some products were found to cause serious and unexpected adverse reactions, including septic shock, jaundice, disruption of liver function, to name some of which required hospitalizations. Instead of providing Canadians with the assurance that they deserve for these products, Numbers of them were unsafe, mislabeled, and otherwise misleading. We are really peddling underneath Health Canada a false sense of security to Canadians. With that, I'd like to start with the deputy minister, if I could, and specifically, I'd like to talk about some of the issues with respect to the withdrawal or the recall of products. I believe that there were 36 out of 40 that were successfully recalled and 3 that were just simply unable to be recalled. And even for the ones that were recalled, it took multiple months. On average, I believe it is 3 months. My question, do you not find this disturbing? And are there any products out there right now which are supposed to be recalled that are not?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will respond, and as well in the course of my response, turn to Lindsay Hollett to provide further information. We are committed at Health Canada to working to ensure products available to Canadians are safe and effective. And in that regard, as I noted, have accepted the recommendations of the Commissioner, and indeed we're acting prior to the report and during the course of the audit to address a number of these areas, including increasing our good manufacturing practices inspections to ensure the quality of the facilities producing the products, and have taken steps, including in the context of and in a pilot program to look specifically at advertising to ensure that issues are addressed, in particular for NHPs.
Specific than that, though, my time is brief there. I'm just talking about specifically, and I just would like the public to know if there are any products which you have recalled that haven't come off the shelves, because I think it's important for Canadians to know that.
Okay. I will make one further point before passing to Lindsay Hollett on that point. One of the recommendations in the audit, and an area that Health Canada has been working to address, is to strengthen our powers for a mandatory recall, mandatory labeling changes, and increased fines. For example, these were not included in Vanessa's law, which was passed in 2014, as I noted, and are working to have those included. Lindsay, can you speak specifically to the recall issue?
Yes, thank you, Deputy. So as the Deputy said, while we don't currently have a mandatory recall power for natural health products, and we are pursuing that, what I can say is that our first step when an issue becomes to our attention is to mitigate risk. That can look like many different things, including a stop sale, public communications. So while all recalls that we have requested may not have been followed on cases, we've been able to take action to mitigate the risk of health and safety to Canadians.
Okay, perfect. And so just on that, so since Vanessa's law was passed in 2014, Deputy Minister, how many times have you asked the government to change the laws? And has the government responded in the, I guess now 8 years since then? So how many times, when did you first ask, and what has been the government's response, and when will they give you these powers?
So this is an area where Health Canada has provided advice, and we are looking for an opportunity to bring those legislative changes forward to strengthen the powers as outlined and as committed to in our response to the audit of the Commissioner.
Specific questions and like some very specific answer. When was the first time you asked for the strengthening of Vanessa's law to include natural health products? Or your department, I should say.
I think it was initially advice provided in Bill C-51 in 2008. It was not included in Vanessa's law, which received royal assent in 2014. The department has been working and continues to work to see that these authorities.
While we have Canadians exposed to unsafe products, this government hasn't done anything in the past 8 years to make sure that these products get off the shelves for Canadians.
That was a statement, so I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave it right there, Doctor. There was no question mark there, and you're out of time. So next, I'll turn to MP Bradford. Please, you have 6 minutes.
Thank you very much. I do share the concerns stated by my colleague, Mr. Lawrence. When I read this report, there were a number of red flags that the Auditor General had identified. And so I just wanted to confirm, I'll address this to you, Mr. DeMarco. Are licenses granted without inspections actually happening of the manufacturing facilities? Where the products are processed and manufactured?
Thank you for that question. So our audit found that the attestation process used by Health Canada for manufacturing facilities fell short because it didn't include, as you suggest, inspections. However, in terms of the work plan and the responses put forward from Health Canada, I believe that they are committed to taking a risk-based approach to inspections, and one of the 3 witnesses from Health Canada could perhaps confirm that.
Thank you. So, Ms. Hollett, I was wondering if you could please explain what an attestation-based approach is. How exactly, what does that entail? And I presume it's supplied by the actual manufacturer.
Thank you, Chair, for the question. I will invite in a second my colleague from the Health Product Food Branch to jump in, as that is the organization that oversees the attestation process. What I can say, however, is, as has been mentioned, including by the Auditor General, we are indeed in the active process and have been since 2017 of ramping up our proactive inspection activity. And in the attestation process that is administered, that does include the oversight and the assessment of information submitted by a company that speaks to their adherence to or compliance with good manufacturing practices. But I will pass to my colleague who oversees the attestation process itself.
Thank you, Lindsay, and thank you for the question, Chair. As we stated earlier, natural health products are an important part of maintaining our healthy lifestyle. And through our regulatory role, we provide oversight for safety and efficacy and quality. And so before products can be sold in Canada, they are assessed before a license is provided. This includes a review of the types of ingredients, the dosage, and health claims to determine which products can be safely used by consumers. And as you noted, while the audit identified areas for improvement, I'll also note that our approach to assessing safety and efficacy of natural health products prior to license was found to be appropriate. The audit also found that when an issue was brought to our attention, the department took action to mitigate the risks. I'll stop there.
Right, but you don't have the power to recall currently okay. So this question would also follow along with you because I understand you're in charge of supervising the labeling, et cetera, right? Is that correct? The claims and the labeling. Okay, do the labels currently list ingredients in these natural healthcare products?
Yes, the labels currently list the ingredients, but as noted in the report, we had started and continue to take measures to improve labeling on these products to make them more visible, more readable, and more evident for consumers when they're purchasing these products.
Okay, thank you. So back to you, Ms. Hollett. Getting back to the supervision of the manufacturing facilities and inspections. So you've done a pilot and it showed that there's a rate of high noncompliance. And so you're going to implement a permanent good manufacturing practices inspection program. I see from the timeline that that's not expected to be in place until November of 2024. Given that it's such a concern that there's no real regular inspections right now, we've got this process of attestation. I wonder if Ms. Hollick could address as to why it's taking such a long length of time to get, inspections in place on a regular basis to ensure that they're being manufactured in clean facilities with no contamination, given that many of these products are ingested. They're vitamins, supplements.
Thank you for the question, Chair. So as has been said, we are now in and have been since March of 2021 in the middle of a successful piloting proactive inspections. I will mention, however, as I stated a couple of minutes ago, we have actually been ramping up activity in the proactive inspection area since 2017. It is correct that in terms of our commitments through the Management Response Action Plan, there is a window during which we will assess the results of the pilot, consult with stakeholders, and then determine our path forward with respect to a permanent inspection program. However, in the interim, while the one-year pilot that we are soon concluding, between that ending, assessing the outputs, consulting with stakeholders, that does not mean that inspection activity will stop. Inspections will continue. We will continue with the momentum that we've built up over the last number of years. So there will not be a period.
Merci beaucoup. Oui, merci beaucoup. Le député Singh.
You have 6 minutes to the block. Thank you, Chair. First of all, I want to thank all of the witnesses for being here, and particularly Mr. DeMarco, who's done extraordinary work with his team in producing these reports. First of all, I want to say that I fully agree with my colleague, Mr. Lawrence. He said that with this report, there's really a sense of trust having been eroded. And I mean trust in the institutions that are supposed to protect us. Based on recent testimony and questions, I understand that there has been progress, and I thank you for that. I think that should continue. But there's still a lot of work to do. And this report shows that that's the case. I think it's really dangerous, particularly in our time, to let people place their trust in unscientific, potentially risky things. So our scientific institutions and Health Canada, for example, really need to set an example. I can give you a really simple example from personal experience, and it's something that's also mentioned in the text. If you think of hand sanitizers, alcohol-based hand sanitizers, there was very little information about the potential impacts that those types of products can have. When I was pregnant, some people said that I shouldn't be using any alcohol-based sanitizers when I was pregnant because it might have an impact on the fetus. Other people said it was fine, but there was very little information available. And honestly, at a time where there was already so much uncertainty to deal with, that was a really difficult thing to have to deal with. I wish I could have had more information, especially if I could have known that the product had been standardized and inspected, that would have been really reassuring. And I learned that that wasn't always the case. So there may be impacts in the coming months or years. I certainly hope that's not the case. But, that's sort of an example from my life that could serve as an example here. Now, I have a question for the Commissioner more specifically. I'd like to hear the Commissioner speak in a bit more detail about the regulatory differences between manufacturing processes between medications and other health products. What is the impact that those regulations have on consumers?
Oui, merci pour la question.
Yes, thank you for the question. I would say that example 2.1 in our report is a comparison between different types of products. You're correct that there are differences between medications and cosmetic or other health products. It's interesting that even if natural products and health products can have similar health objectives, the regulatory system for them is different. Now, I can't tell you what the reasoning for that is. That would be a question to ask Health Canada. They might be able to explain to you why there are regulatory differences between these different categories of products. Thank you. And could you tell us, if natural health products were subject to the same regulatory regime as medications, what impact would that have potentially? What types of positive effects might we expect? Yes, I think there would be positive results. I'm reassured that, this isn't a situation where we made recommendations and the department didn't agree. In this case, they did agree. They agree with the report, they agree with the research that's been done, and they agree that there are problems. As the Deputy Minister said, they are preparing to modify the law to maybe level out the regime, or at least modernize and update it somewhat. 30 seconds. So with the 30 seconds that I have, I don't think I'll ask my next question to Health Canada. But, well, maybe I'll ask it now and then I'll leave them some time to think about it for the next round. I guess my question would just be, why are the systems so different? I understand there is a project pilot, but why have things not moved forward? Thank you very much.
Desjardins, you have 6 minutes, please. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I want to just thank the members of the committee who've already spoken. I think those are very good points that you've addressed. And I know our colleague, Mr. Lawrence, who's not here, mentioned his advocacy for the quality of the report here and how damning it truly is. It's a serious concern, I think, to this committee to know that these reports, in fact, can reveal devastating facts about our public service and the areas that need to be improved. There was right from the audit period from February 2017 to December 2019, there was also an extension, I understand, for 2 months to look at new products and site licenses approved between April and May 2020. I'd be remiss that as a member of the New Democratic Party, I didn't mention my concern with the fact that our Office of the Auditor General has workers on strike outside of our office, outside of this meeting. I'm going more and more concerned as the impact of keeping those workers locked out of the Office of the Auditor General and the relationship it has with the quality of these reports, and especially as it relates to Natalie, my colleague on this committee's comments on trust in institutions. We have to have the ability to trust the Office of the Auditor General in these reports. And although this report I do believe to be of good quality, I'm growing more and more concerned with the fact that we have over 100 employees at the Office of the Auditor General outside our office right now who can't do the quality work that we expect this committee to do. I'm concerned about that, and I think it's a very legitimate concern. I've gotten many, many people concerned about our work here, who are concerned about the potential impact of not being able to have the credible reports that this committee needs to do the work that this country's done for over 150 years. And these reports, I believe, have everything to do with how we understand our role at public accounts. The trust of this institution is so important. The work we do at this committee is some of the most important work this country can do on behalf of Canadians. And I admire and respect every single member of our team, not just my colleagues around this table, my colleagues who also work in the Office of the Auditor General, and I respect that work. I just need to know, as a member of this committee, whether or not any future reports coming to this committee, including this one, during the period, especially between April and May 2020, are impacted by the workers being locked out right now, and can we expect delays to quality to our reports moving forward while this continues?
Thank you for the question, and thank you also for the endorsement of the important work of this committee as well as our office. We have a great team at the Office of the Auditor General, and as Commissioner, I'm an integral part of the Office of the Auditor General. It is we are looking forward to a new mandate regarding the labor negotiations from Treasury Board next week. The labor disruption has proceeded for a long time, and we do foresee delays in our work, including the delays for upcoming publications of audits. We will not be issuing substandard work, though. So if there's an impact on our work, it would be to delay the release of reports rather than to issue reports on time that are not up to audit standards. So that there is a disruption to our work, but it will not result in us publishing or tabling with Parliament substandard work. I can assure you of that.
I want to thank the Commissioner for that answer. I think it's very important that this committee understands what the Commissioner said. There will be an impact and delay to our work. A committee so as critical and important as this because of the fact we're not respecting workers. But I do want to really thank the Office of the Auditor General for the work they're doing and for the advocacy to ensure that Treasury Board does their part, because I do believe the Office of the Auditor General, from speaking from members there, have done the best they can to ensure that a fair deal is reached. And it's very critical, the point that the Commissioner mentioned, that the Treasury Board do their job too, so that we can restore confidence in this committee and to restore our schedule. Because, like was mentioned by the Commissioner, there will be a delay. So we need to get on top of this. This should be a nonpartisan issue. We need to protect our institutions. We need to protect the people who work at our Office of the Auditor General. And we need to make sure that we have a timely fashion report so that all Canadians can ensure that this institution continues. I want to thank the Commissioner for your honest answer and for your support for ensuring that we come to a swift and good conclusion on behalf of everyone at the Office of the Auditor General so that we no longer incur the delays that you've cited. I'm not sure how much, 1 minute, so maybe I'll just mention quickly, I'll save this question, the answer to it for the next round, but I do want to touch on the idea of traditional medicine and how important traditional medicine is for Indigenous people, and the regulation of it is something of concern. You know, regulating traditional medicines and how medicines can be sold or even put on the market is concerning to Indigenous people, and I'll elaborate more. But thanks so much to the Commissioner.
You still have 45 seconds. Yeah.
I have 45 seconds still. Okay, well, in that case, I'll continue my aspect on traditional medicines. When traditional medicine is considered for the purposes of ensuring that Indigenous people have not only access to these products, but also there's a fear that there could be the appropriation of these health products by non-Indigenous people for the exploitation of our traditional understanding and our way of using these medicines in a sacred and reciprocal way. And there's huge concerns with the regulation of how we post these on the public market. Indigenous people do not want to see non-Indigenous people harvesting and creating exclusive zones where these products can be put on the market and have to be purchased. Indigenous traditional medicine needs to continue to be accepted and needs to continue to be unregulated in the sense that Indigenous people have been regulating it in a way that is traditional to our own understanding and ways moving forward. I just want to understand in clarity, I know we probably won't have enough time here, but how we can protect that and how this, the law that we're debating in relation to the principle of 2014 relates to this.
Thank you. Again, just to remind everyone, Dr. Lucas, this will be his last round. I'll have a quick comment after this round for or a question for Dr. Lewis. I don't want to interfere, but it's coming from the analyst, so I think it's worth raising. But for now, MP Patzer, you have the floor for 5 minutes.
Thank you. And I'm just wondering, maybe is there about like a 30-second answer to the last statement that was made by my colleague from the NDP there, just to kind of finish that point? Is there anything that you guys want to just comment on that about traditional medicines?
Mr. Chair, I will speak briefly to it, and then I'm happy to come back to it. And so in terms of non-traditional medicines, including indigenous medicines, homeopathic products, and others, how a retailer chooses to group the products outside of the purview of Health Canada. We recognize that there is an abundance of choice when it comes to what we call self-care products, and knowing which product to purchase for oneself and one's family can be challenging. And so in an effort to better support, we are proposing the changes to improve natural health product labels so that they're clear and they're legible. But I can come back to more detail in that, and more specifically on Indigenous traditional medicine when we have more time.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I was just going to indicate that the regulations pertain to products that are sought for sale. For products such as traditional medicine, where a community or Indigenous group harvests and uses them, and it's not for sale, they wouldn't be subject to regulation.
Okay, thank you for that. I guess this question is kind of more for Health Canada here, but where over 70% of Canadians are regularly using natural health products, why aren't the penalties higher on those who fail to meet Health Canada standards? Because you guys have mentioned, and the report mentions, that you cannot force a recall of a product, and it's not notified when a new product enters the market, and the maximum fine for violating a law is only $5,000. So it just seems like it's not a large enough deterrent to stop the bad actors from violating the rules that have been imposed. So what are your thoughts there?
Mr. Chair, as I indicated, and as is outlined in the report, Health Canada does believe and will seek the opportunity to include in Vanessa's law natural health products, such that those increased fines and other powers, such as product recall, can be granted. In regard to information on when products are brought to market and requirements for site license information for quality review, we are taking steps now and have been taking steps to strengthen that, as my colleagues have noted, and we'll be making modifications to the regulations to build in those requirements. Those would, on the side of notification and the site license information, those would be regulatory changes, but we are taking steps in advance of that at this time. Okay,
so you referenced that you will be asking, is there any timelines for when that's actually going to happen, though, right? I think this report's identified, many flaws, but I mean, one for sure is how do you deter people from taking advantage of Canadians? So, you said you will, but when is that going to happen? Is there a timeline in place for when that's going to happen? What assurances do we have that this is actually going to take place?
I think the department's commitment, and as outlined in the response to the audit report and our management response, our testimony today, clearly commits us to seek the legislative change needed to add natural health products to Vanessa's law. And we will seek the earliest possible opportunity to do that in consultation with central agencies and others to enable that legislation to move forward as quickly as possible.
Okay, so for lots of regulations, there's a mandatory review time frame. Is there one in place for Vanessa's law, or is this something that is basically just left up to your department to do whenever it sees fit?
Mr. Chair, I'm not aware of a mandatory review time for Vanessa's law specifically. But as I indicated, we are committed to having that legislative change made as quickly as possible. The decision was taken in going back to the time to not include natural health products, and we have and want to see that change made as at the earliest possible opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Patzer. MP Dong, you have the floor for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair. I want to thank all the witnesses for coming today. The way I look at this study is like most of the government regulations, that on one end you have the consumer benefits, right? So the safety of consumers. On the other end, you have a thriving market, right? Both including the producers, importers, retailers. So I think somewhere in the middle will represent consumer choice, alternative medicine, affordability, and a thriving market. I do want to say that I was in Japan and Hong Kong. I know this industry is thriving in Korea, Taiwan for many, many years. Mainland China is picking up as well. And I see evidence that, or signals that in Canadian markets, especially like big urban centers like Toronto, these shops are opening up, and obviously that's a sign that there's a market for it. And if you go into whether it's Loblaws or Metro or these franchise chains, you'll see that their product on the shelf. So it is actually very important for us to get ahead of this and take a look at the licensing and the inspection. So I want to begin my questions on licensing. Just help me to understand the process here. First of all, there's a lot being talked about manufacturing domestic products. What's the requirement for import products when it comes to licensing? Maybe to start with the Deputy Minister.
Certainly, I'll provide an initial response and then turn to my colleague Pam Millington for further information. Product licensing requirements are requirements for all products that are intended for sale in Canada, whether they're manufactured in Canada or imported. And those include requirements in terms of the safety, efficacy, and quality of those products. In regard to the findings of the audit in areas where Health Canada has been and will continue to take action and strengthen our work, we are strengthening the required information associated with the quality of products as part of that pre-market or pre-licensing review, including moving from an attestation system that the product site license meets specifications to one where we are seeking test results in terms of product quality and further notification, and we'll be building that into our regulations, but it's a practice that we're implementing now, as my colleagues have outlined.
Thank you. So it sounds to me it's a bit easier to understand when it comes to domestic products, because you got a manufacturer that you can go to, you got a supply chain that you can trace. But when it comes to import products, do you just depend on the ingredients, the information the importer provides, or actually there's a requirement for a Canadian institution to test them to see the actual ingredients or proper labeling? And can you shed a light on that and tell us how long that period will take usually?
I'll turn to Pam just in terms of the pre-market review, and Lindsay in terms of site inspection, where we do some on-site visits and work with other regulators internationally, where we have trusted relationships to use their reviews. Pam, to start.
Thank you, Deputy, and thank you for the question. So for imported products, companies do require a site license to import those products. And this is to ensure that the products meet the standards that are set out in regulations. The importer also needs to provide evidence that any foreign manufacturer meets good manufacturing practices. I'll just add that in terms of the regulations that we've put in place, They do respect the range of cultural and philosophical diversity that underlie the broad range of products. You named a number of products in this space, and our regulations were informed by recommendations on the Standing Committee of Health. So maybe I'll, for the second part of that question, I'll pass it on to my colleague Lindsay.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you.
And if you could just keep it short, please. If you could just keep it very short.
Very short. What I will add is that for many of the reasons you mentioned, importers are actually a huge focus of ours in the inspection pilot and will continue to be as we move toward a more permanent program. Half, if not more, of those we are inspecting for compliance with regulations are importers.
License and period take.
I'm going to have to ask you to come back to that.
I'll ask them later. Thank you.
Madame Singh.
Now we'll go to Ms. Sinclair Desgagnés. You have 2.5 minutes. Thank you, Chair. So just to follow up on my previous question, I was hoping to get an answer from Health Canada concerning the impacts of the verification and inspection of sites before they begin operation. Well, Mr. Chair, I would start just by saying that Health Canada has a very serious responsibility of taking all complaints and we take those complaints seriously and we follow up on them. We take a proactive approach. And I will give the floor to Lindsay to provide more detail. But we are setting up a proactive system to target the most high-risk products, such as any products that may be carcinogenic. So we will have an inspection system which is more proactive. Lindsay?
Thank you. So yes, that I will mention we've had quite a robust for-cause inspection activity or program for quite some time now. That has always been very risk-based, and as the deputy shared, moving forward on all of our proactive activity, that too will be risk-based. We look at a fair number and a consistent set of criteria, including at the top, of course, imminent risk to public health and safety. But we have a robust triage system that ensures that where we put our focus, but also where we put our highest service standards, such as time to first action, very risk-based, ensuring again that we deal with the highest risk situations in a timely fashion and in immediate fashion in most cases.
Et voilà, désolé, c'est.
Sorry, unfortunately the time's already expired.
Guy Desjardins, you've got 2.5 minutes, please. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair, and I want to thank my colleague from Cypress Hills Grasslands for helping to answer my last question related to traditional medicines, and I really appreciate the answer that was given related to the specific differentiation between Indigenous people harvesting the medicine and sharing that medicine amongst the nation and having the ability and support by the government to be able to do that effectively and efficiently. And so I want to thank you for that very clear answer. But in relation to the sale of Indigenous medicines, and to put more clearly, the sale of Indigenous medicines by non-Indigenous persons, which would amount to, in many ways, appropriation, and in some sense, an abuse of, we believe in some ways, an abuse of the use of these sacred medicines. How do we find ways to warn or to create an environment where those who are seeking Indigenous medicine go to Indigenous people rather than to Walmart or to some big box store where they're going to buy a whole package of sweetgrass and then never learn about the importance of and value of this medicine, and allowing for this kind of disenfranchisement of Indigenous peoples in the understanding of how we use and apply those medicines in a good way. It's akin, in some sense, to the abuse of I think, over-the-counter prescription drugs. You know, when you have those prescription drugs for the purposes of very specific things in Western culture, very specific ailments, but then it's abused oftentimes, let's say sleep medication for other purposes. How do we make sure that Indigenous medicines are actually the ones that are for sale, that are maybe for sale by non-Indigenous people, being regulated?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll provide some brief comments and turn to Pam for any further comment. Mr. Chair, the member raises an important point and indicating the importance of a broader, more holistic approach that not only includes those specific requirements in the regulations in regard to ensuring the safety, quality, and efficacy of products, both before they get on the market and while they're on the market, as we've been discussing, and clarity in labeling, such as our labeling regulations, which were published in June 2021 and will be finalized this coming spring, but as well in terms of advertising and awareness. There is a public education dimension on this, which we think is an important part of the program and want to continue to work with partners, including Indigenous partners, in that regard. Pam, I will turn to you in terms of these important considerations.
Pardon me, I'm going to have to come back to you, Ms. Ong Tien. I'm afraid we're out of time, but if you could maybe, if the question comes up again, hopefully we'll hear from you. Turning again to MP Patzer, you have the floor for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. To the Commissioner, I'll get your response on this first, and then if Health Canada wants to respond as well, you guys are free to do that. But one thing I find really interesting, and there's a bit of a theme throughout the report, I'll read from section 2.6 at the end there, that however the primary responsibility for the safety and efficacy of products and manufacturing sites rests with the industry, and then when we start seeing other stats and information, like in section 2.3, where 88% of these products were advertised with misleading product information and 56% of the products we examined were marked with misleading label information. And a lot of these products have to have a Health Canada stamp of approval on them. Am I correct in saying that? And I just think it's to see that there's such a discrepancy with what they're advertised for and what they actually accomplish, but they have a Health Canada stamp of approval on them. Just wondering if there's any concerns by the department and by the Commissioner on that. If the Commissioner wants to go first.
Definitely, we have concerns about the accuracy of the label and also the whether the actual contents of the package matches what's been licensed, and it's all the more challenging with the fact that consumer choice is now carried out in the internet marketplace as well as on store shelves. So there are some challenges there. It's impossible with 91,000 product licenses out there, and who knows how many of those are actually marketed. There's no comprehensive list of how many of those licenses have come to market. But with that amount of products, obviously Canadians can't rely on a caveat emptor approach to this. We need Health Canada to guarantee the safety of these products, and that is their mandate with respect to natural health products. So definitely the report revealed our concerns with regard to that. The responses, as well as the work plan of Health Canada, I think will go at least part way to addressing some of those concerns. They're not wholly within their control, though, because some of the responses signal the need for legislative change.
And then Health Canada, what are your thoughts on seeing 88% of products advertised have misleading product information, but yet it had the Health Canada stamp on them? What do you think of that?
Mr. Chair, in response, this is an area where we were taking action prior to the report and have subsequently. We think it is critically important that not only the products are reviewed by Health Canada, as the Commissioner tested in report. The pre-market review of safety and efficacy is done well and appropriately, but while they're on the market, to ensure that Canadians accessing them can feel comfortable that they are safe and effective and of high quality. We have gazetted in spring 2021 labeling regulations to improve the quality and readability and information on the regulation, including dosage and warning information. Those will be finalized this spring. We have moved to proactive monitoring of advertising, including online, both for COVID products and, as I'd mentioned, NHPs with cancer-related claims, and are going to be broadening this. And we're taking steps to strengthen our ability to do this as well through increased resources by bringing in cost recovery from manufacturers and license holders for natural health products to strengthen our ability to provide this post-market oversight.
Okay, thanks for that. And just, to Health Canada as well, you're on section 2.23 of the report, it references trusting or working with inspections performed by domestic regulatory authorities from other countries when licensing these sites. What assurances do Canadians have that the standards of these other countries are the same as Canada? What work has been done to ensure that level is there, and what needs to? And I guess maybe the question for the commissioner is what needs to be done to ensure that those standards are met. But if Health Canada wants to start with that one.
Mr. Chair, I'll start with that and turn to Lindsay. We have a rigorous system of developing mutual recognition agreements with other regulators so that we have assurance that the standards they're inspecting to and their inspection methods conform with and are equivalent to those of Health Canada. Lindsay can give you the practical experience of how we affect that.
I'm afraid on that we're going to have to hold there. I'm moving through at a nice time here, so we will have time for the fourth round, everyone. So you'll be able to have a time to come back to these important questions. Turning now to Ms. Yep, you have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you. I would like to commend Health Canada for responding so quickly and flexibly for products like hand sanitizers to help limit the spread of COVID. I do believe that it did help educate the wider public and also give them some comfort. So this is to Health Canada. My first question is, if claims to cure and treat cancer are forbidden under the Food and Drugs Act, why would some claims of products preventing cancer be allowed? And what type of preventable natural health products are allowed? I think that's kind of dangerous and misleading to the public.
Thank you. Perhaps I'll turn to Lindsay in responding to that.
So as for the first part of the question, and Deputy, I think I will ask Pam if she would like to add anything. But with respect to the first part of that question, I can say that from a compliance and enforcement standpoint, when we look at issues, including labeling issues, what we find is that a lot of companies are in non-compliance or contravention with their market authorization. So as the member says, it is something is not allowed under our legislation, nor would their market authorization allow them to make a claim. But in some cases, you still find the claim. And then you are in direct contravention with the Food and Drug Act and the regulations. And that is where our compliance and enforcement would come in, including such tools as stop sales, seizing product, public communications, but that would be in contravention of a market authorization, the Act and the regs. Pam?
Yeah, thank you, Lindsay, and thank you for the question. I will just respond by saying certainly examples of natural health products to treat cancer are very rare. That being said, it is a wide category of products. So one example is sunscreen, which is used for the prevention of skin cancer in conjunction with other prevention activities.
Thank you. During the pandemic, Canadians turned more to online purchases. And with more than 1/4 of 75 licensed products that did not show they had a natural product number, and also, it's something I think that the public really relies on if they see this natural product number will help give them some sort of confidence in a product. However, there isn't such a requirement for this number to appear online. So can you clarify if there will be a requirement on how online products will be regulated with this number?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll turn to Pam to speak to our labeling regulations and this question specifically.
Yes, thank you for the question, and thank you, Deputy. We are definitely looking into this, and our recommendations for online is definitely in development. You're right in that it's not currently required, but we are working on a proposal. But I'll just take the time as well just to mention that one of the recommendations was around monitoring. It was around developing a risk-based monitoring program to identify unlicensed products and take the appropriate action. And so the department has been working on exploring various tools, including artificial intelligence, web scraping, to proactively support monitoring of the program, including unlabeled products. And so those next steps will include determining the feasibility of linking terms of the market authorization database with an external AI tool. So there is work that is underway.
Could you just give further examples of some of the AI tools being used?
Yeah, I don't have the specific name of the actual AI tool, but we are using, we've been testing and piloting different ones that are available to do that online monitoring so that we can move from a complaints-based response to more of a risk-based response moving forward.
Thank you. Just at the chair's discretion, I have a question from our analyst here. Dr. Lucas, could someone or you or someone on your team help us with just two questions? On page 1 of your management response and action plan, it states, quote, dependent on the approved recommendations, seek regulatory amendments. The quote continues. Our two questions are, which recommendations are you referring to? And second, what is the process to seek regulatory amendments? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'll speak to the second question, and then while I'm doing that, one of my colleagues, perhaps Pam, can speak to the specific part of the management response. In terms of the process to seek regulatory amendments, the department develops a policy proposal. In general, we will consult stakeholders on it prior to seeking the authority of Treasury Board to publish it for formal consultation in Canada Gazette Part 1. And indeed, in the case of the labeling regulations, we had for several years consulted a range of stakeholders on changes to the labeling regulations. Those were then brought forward into a proposal and approved by the Treasury Board in the spring of 2021 and gazetted in June 2021 on the basis of feedback from those stakeholders. As I've indicated, we are finalizing the proposal on those natural health product labeling regulations to propose it again to Treasury Board for consideration of its final form this spring. Pam, in regard to the specific point of the chair raised in the management response, I'll turn to you.
Yes, thank you for the question. And what are we assessing? We are assessing the tools that are required for pre-market to strengthen our oversight. And when we were developing the MRAP, we expected that those would include changes that require regulatory amendments. So we're finalizing those recommendations now, and we'll be working towards bringing forward a regulatory proposal. But just to reiterate the deputy's response, we are certainly continuing to move forward our regulatory proposal specific to label changes.
Thank you very much to the two of you. I'm getting a thumbs up from our team here, so I appreciate it. Dr. Lucas, I know you might well sign off any moment now, so I do want to thank you for appearing today. And I know we're in good hands with your two associates. I'm now going to turn to our third round, and to kick that off for the Conservatives is MP Patzer, please. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. To Health Canada, how many people have you fined for $5,000? How many people have you fined?
Mr. Chair, with that, I'll pass it to Lindsay Hollett, and with the Chair's recognition of my schedule, I will sign off at this point and thank the committee very much for this opportunity to appear on this, and we're certainly committed to keeping the committee updated as needed on our progress in addressing these important findings and recommendations. Lindsay?
Thank you, Deputy, and thank you, Chair, for the question. The exact number since the inception of the program in 2004, I will have to commit to get that information back to the committee. What I can say is that in deciding which cases would go that route, and by that I mean prosecution, which would eventually end, if successful, in fines. That is something we administer very closely with the Public Prosecution Service of Canada. It is not a space in which we act alone. They are the ultimate decision makers. But with respect to the member's question, I can commit to get the exact number post-meeting, if that is acceptable.
It is. Thank you.
Yeah, we would definitely like that number, because the report points to it. You guys have acknowledged that there needs to be changes. We've had no assurances of when those changes are going to happen, and how we haven't got any kind of a sense of urgency on when this is going to happen. And I mean, again, when we're seeing things like literally that every single site had issues, but it's only a $5,000 deterrent for, having contaminants in your product. Like, again, what is the level of the sense of urgency to actually get some real strong deterrents and actual teeth that are going to prevent bad actors from taking advantage of Canadians who, quite frankly, are having negative experiences. There are people who are taking products that they're thinking are going to help them with cancer, but obviously in some cases aren't. So what are you guys going to do? And what's this level of urgency to make sure that we actually get real teeth to prevent these bad actors from taking advantage of vulnerable Canadians?
Thank you for the question. I can start off, and perhaps my colleague Lindsay can add in anything that she wishes to add. And so thank you for the question. As we had outlined earlier, there were a number of recommendations in the report, and we have agreed with all 5 recommendations. I'll also add that leading up to the report, there already had been work started, and that was clearly underway to tackle some of the gaps that came out later in the report. I think the deputy covered fairly extensively earlier that we continue to pursue legislation through Vanessa's law to provide with additional protections for consumers, and that follow-up continues fairly vigorously as we work with our colleagues, not only internally but with central agencies, to move that forward. Lindsay?
Thank you, Pam. With respect to a sense of urgency, I will just point out, and hopefully helpful to the committee, we really come at regulated parties and issues of noncompliance on 2 fronts. First and foremost, always, is mitigating risk to safety. Once that is done, we look at punitive measures, and that's where we come in with prosecutions and fines. As was said, in all respects, we are looking to bolster our tools and our authorities, but certainly in that first instance of assessing risk proactively to Canadians, we do feel a sense of urgency, and that is why you see the inspection pilot program. That is why we will continue inspection activity while we are assessing the pilot to keep momentum going, because we do agree with the member that there is a need to do more in this space.
Okay, really quickly to the Commissioner. In your findings, is $5,000 enough of a fine or should it be higher?
Thank you for the question. The difference between the two columns in Exhibit 2.1, 5,000 and 5 million, is disproportionate to the levels of risk. There's no indication that natural health product risks are 1/1000th as important as over-the-counter risks. So there does need to be a revisiting of that. The signal that it sends to potential bad actors is that this is not important. When you have a fine maximum, that's only $5,000.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Turning now to MP Fragas-Gatos. You have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just looking at the report, just want to get clarification where it says, and I'm quoting now, Health Canada does not have the authority to order a change to a label or force a mandatory recall of a natural health product for any reason, including when a product presents a serious or imminent risk of injury to health. Now, why is that? Because if you go into the substance of the report, it does say that Health Canada can enforce product and state license conditions for natural health products, and it gives examples: suspending or canceling licenses, directing a stop sale of products, seizing products, requesting voluntary product recalls, and issuing public alerts and advisories on the Health Canada website. So those are substantive, but why not this authority to change a label or force, say, a mandatory recall? Is that a legislative gap? What does that relate to?
Thank you for the question. I can start and certainly turn to my colleague Lindsay if she has anything to add. But certainly that was well documented in the report, and something that we are very conscious of and that we are responding to. And so one of our responses, we indicated that we would be seeking Vanessa's Law powers for natural health products, which will allow us some additional authorities, some of which that you have outlined. And in terms of some of the what we call post-market activities, perhaps I'll turn to Lindsay.
Thank you, Pam, and thank you, Chair, for the question. As the member suggests, and I will speak specifically to recalls, that is, as Pam says, a legislative issue that we are looking to fill. The list that the member read out, one you may have noted, was requesting voluntary recalls. So it is because that is there specifically, that is all that we can do. However, I will say, having now run the program for close to 18 years, although it says voluntary recalls, we in many cases have great success in working with a company when making a voluntary request. And in the small number of circumstances where that is not successful, we are able to use one of the more harder hitting tools that you've heard mentioned a couple of times this morning.
Thank you very much. There's a number of recommendations, but one of the most important ones reads as follows: Health Canada should, for licensed natural health products on the market, including on the internet, take a risk-based approach. I understand what the Auditor General has said there, but how does Health Canada define risk-based approach in relation to this recommendation? And where is the progress on this particular recommendation as well? And that's whoever wishes to take it.
Maybe I can start, Pam. So thank you, Chair, for the question. The term risk-based is something that in the regulatory space, especially compliance and enforcement, you will hear us speak to often. It directs much of our decision-making. What we mean when we say risk-based is that when we are looking at a situation to determine the level of risk, we apply a fairly lengthy but consistent set of criteria. So we look at the nature of the non-compliance, although all are important. We look at, is it a labeling issue versus contamination, the type of non-compliance and what risk that represents. We will then look at the target population of a product. Perhaps it's a vulnerable subpopulation or something of that nature. We will look at the compliance history of the party that we're dealing with. And so what we do to ensure risk-based is apply those consistent criteria, and that dictates what action we take, how quickly it really directs all of our decision-making. Pam, did you have anything to add?
Yes, thank you, Lindsay, and thank you for the question. And I will just add a little bit more to that, because there was also a component in the report that talked about a risk-based monitoring program to identify unlicensed products and take appropriate action. And this is a recommendation that we agreed with. And so we do maintain a complaint-based program for regulatory advertising compliance oversight, but we also recognize that an additional risk-based approach is required so that we ensure that unauthorized activities are prevented or are stopped. And so we are implementing this approach to this risk-based approach to monitor advertising. And we're taking steps to propose new tools that will strengthen our ability to do so. I mentioned some of those earlier. So we did run a pilot.
I'm going to stop you right there. Thank you. We have the transcript, so we can refer to that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I apologize. La députée Sinclair-Desgagnés.
Ms. Sinclair-Desgagnés, 2.5 minutes. Thank you, Chair. I'd like to follow up on my colleague, Mr. Fragascatos' very pertinent question. Now, the risk mitigation approach is very good, particularly when you understand the scope of health risks. I know there are other aspects as well, as our witnesses explained, but there's so much uncertainty around the medium and long-term effects of some of these products, especially on more vulnerable populations, like pregnant women, for example. There is very, very little information about the medium and long-term impacts of products, particularly natural health products, on pregnant women. So, it's all well and good to have a risk mitigation strategy, but is that enough? Do we not need a preventative approach? Specifically on the fact that some of these products are not inspected, the manufacturing is not inspected, and there's no strategy to prevent risks. Of course, you can mitigate the risks following complaints, but is there a way that we can guarantee that all of the products that are on the Quebec and Canadian markets, or at least most of them, would be actually inspected and guaranteed that they're safe for Canadians?
Merci pour la question.
Thank you for the question. It's a very good one. I just mentioned that with all of the natural health products, we do monitor these products for the safety of their usage once they're on the market. So if there are risks that appear later on, we work very closely, not only with people who communicate to the public, but also with the manufacturers to make sure that labels are updated to reflect the risks. Lindsay?
Pam, what I would agree with the member in that in our world, it is often much easier to identify and assess the immediate risk. Medium and longer term is a more in-depth process. But I do think in what you see in our management response action plan, there's a theme that goes throughout, and that is multiple actions to gather more information so that we at Health Canada have more information about the products on the Canadian market. And that will have multiple benefits and uses, but certainly one of them is to inform a medium and longer term picture of the risks, as the member mentions.
Thank you very much. Turning now to Mr. Desjardins. Pardon. Vous avez 2 minutes.
You have 2.5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I want to again thank the witnesses present here for their very important discussion on how we make sure that these products continue to be regulated in a safe and effective way. But also, I think there's room to ensure that we have a fair understanding as a committee as to how we can continue to do this better, because it's very clear here that there's much improvement that's required to this system. And I understand just from our discussion today that it partly has to do with the lack of legislation. It has to do with a lack of authority in particular areas of jurisdiction that your department would like to see in order to empower itself to make these things more credible. So I hear that point. In terms of when we look at licensing and we look at labeling, I was part of a process in Montreal that looked at the intellectual property of Indigenous artists. And at that point, that's also a very unregulated field. And we've seen that there was huge abuse to Indigenous people and non-Indigenous people copying or creating fakes or pretending to create art and sell that art across the country, in particular in Quebec, at enormous prices. And the Inuit community, of course, in collaboration with the Government of Canada, came to an agreement that helped to enforce justice for the Inuit community to making this better by instituting a label that was a qualifiable label of Inuit quality, and it was a quality stamp. And so when I think of this process and best practices, and the government has this procedure for art, but can it employ procedures like this in terms of labeling to make sure Indigenous people and people who want to enjoy Indigenous products understand that it's been ethically sourced and understood and handled in a good way? Is that something that the department has ever thought about doing, or in collaboration with Indigenous people about doing, in terms of labeling protections?
So I can perhaps take that one. So thank you for the question. It's a very important issue, and I commend the work that's being done in the intellectual property space. What I would say for natural health products, and in particular for products that are more traditional in nature, including Indigenous traditional medicines, as I mentioned earlier, we label only those that are for sale in outlets that require labels. But our realm of authorities are limited to health and safety and those claims that are made on those products. And so it doesn't, unfortunately, extend to some of the broader issues that you were mentioning. But we certainly hear your concern, and will continue to continue our work in terms of the actual of the audit recommendations and ensuring the health and safety of Canadians through these various programs.
Thank you very, very much. Turning again to the official opposition, Mr. Lawrence, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And my first questions will go to the Commissioner. I'll point your attention to paragraph 2.45, which is on page 13 of your report. In there, it states that the department found problems at all sites. It's 35, it says in the previous sentence, including the use of expired raw materials, unacceptable amounts of contaminants, and product tests that did not confirm to the product's expiry date. Simple question to you, Commissioner. Is that concerning?
Yes, that is concerning, and that is, it was just a sample of those 35 companies. If that situation holds true for many of the others that aren't inspected, then it implies that the situation is of a larger concern than is mentioned in the sample. So yes, it is a concern, and Health Canada can speak to how it is going to respond to those findings and recommendation 2.47 under that. I just want to add, I think the member Desjardins has raised an issue a few times, and I don't think it's been addressed. I just want to point him to the Nagoya Protocol on Access and Benefit Sharing under the UN Convention on Biodiversity, the issues of biopiracy, bioprospecting, scientific imperialism, and so on. There's a large international debate about that, and it's very important in the Canadian context. So just so that it doesn't appear that that issue has been left unaddressed.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, I assume I'll get some of Blake's time for that answer. Of course, just kidding. I thank you for
your own time.
I thank you for that response there. So to public health or the health department, when will this issue be resolved? And could you also just explain, if you could, what expired raw materials were found and what contaminants were found in these inspections of these 35 manufacturing plants?
Maybe I can take that one. Thank you, Chair, for the question. I would like to say, to use the members' word and to sort of support, I guess, what the Auditor General said, we do find those concerning. It is not at all unusual to make observations during any kind of inspection. In fact, in the vast majority of inspections, there would be observations. However, when they are of the nature of the sample that the member cited, then that is when, from a compliance and enforcement perspective, you are at the top level of addressing that, of the top level of response in terms of time, in terms of the tools we use, and the severity of the actions we take to mitigate risk to health and safety. In terms of when that issue will be addressed, I'm assuming the issue that we're talking about is addressing the most serious observations that were cited during inspections. I can say that observations cited in inspections that are included in the scope of that report have been addressed with the companies. Again, I know I've mentioned
on that,
before,
just because my time is short, my apologies for cutting off.
No
of those 35 companies, how many had their manufacturing license suspended?
So the exact number I will get for the committee. We have numbers of actual suspensions, but also intentions to suspend. I would want to give accurate information so we can commit.
No, just for clarity, it does say in here that there was a notice of intent, I believe, for in here for half. Sorry, so it does say that, but I was just wondering how many were actually suspended, just for clarity. The other issue, the other question I have for you, and if you don't know, I would appreciate a written response, would be how many inspections were performed in 2020, 2021, and the first 3 months of 2022, and on that, how many suspensions there were?
So thank you for the question, Chair. Again, I can give you the number of inspections. In terms of license suspensions, I will commit to get that information quite quickly after the meeting. So in 2020, we had not yet launched our pilot, but we did do what would be a precursor or a mini inspection program, if you like. They're cited in the report, called compliance monitoring projects. There was one in 2020. That would have been 17 inspections, I believe, 17 to 18. In 2021, we would have launched our pilot, which carried over into the first 3 months of 2022. That included 36 inspections, the last couple of which we are in the process of wrapping up before March 31st.
Thank you, and the committee looks forward to receiving the information that was requested. Turning now to Ms. Shanahan, you have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Excuse me, Chair, I am giving my spot to Mr. Don. So I should let you know.
MP Don.
Thank you, MP Shanahan, and thank you, Chair. I'm going to go back to my last question on the time frame for processing a license application. How long does it take? And if you don't have this information, I'm talking about for domestic product and then also for imports as well. I recognize that there might be a difference. Can you send it to the committee afterwards? Okay, that's great. I have a very small question about labeling. Is there an emphasis put on ingredients that might potentially be allergens? because allergy is a very risky thing. Both my kids have severe allergies. Is there attention paid to that?
Yes, absolutely. So allergens, yes.
Okay. In terms of inspection, I think we really should differentiate inspecting the manufacturing facilities as well as the retail facilities. So I just want to talk about the retail facilities. Can you explain to me how these inspections are carried out? Is it carried out by actual officers showing up at the door and looking through the product, or it's in written form?
So I can take that question. Just to clarify, when we do an inspection, it is they are focused on entities that conduct an activity for which you need a Health Canada license. So right now, inspection programs for the one being piloted for natural health products, but also for more mature inspections programs we have, including for drugs, do not include retail inspections. We have, especially during the pandemic, worked quite closely with the retail community, for example, around on the hand sanitizer file. So there is a relationship there. But the inspection program I've been speaking of this morning and the pilot does not include retail inspections. Maybe the last thing I can add is for those we do inspect, what that looks like is an announced planned inspection on a date that is agreed to with the regulated party. We do unannounced inspections, but that is more on the reactive side, inspections for cause.
Okay, I just wanted this to be on the record. I've heard positive feedbacks from the retail sector dealing with Health Canada inspectors. They've been very sensitive and accommodating. Try not to be, the least intrusive and the least interruption to their business. So I just want to pass on that and encourage you to continue doing that. On the licensing and inspection, actually, have you looked at how countries around the world are doing it for best practices? I say this because I think in Japan or Hong Kong that they have a different classification, like level 1, level 2. And require different licensing and inspections. Have we looked at them?
Yes, certainly on the licensing side, we do look at international reference regulators for best practices and to get that information to inform our own policies and information. Lindsay?
I have, Chair. Oh, good. Okay, so I want to focus on TCM. So I just want to say that, I didn't believe in TCM so much, although I'm a Chinese Canadian. Until 2005, my father actually went through rounds of chemo, and he was advised to use TCM product, traditional Chinese medicine product, and these are in powder form. And it was amazing. He didn't suffer any side effects of the chemo rounds. And I know this is a sort of a very anecdotal evidence. My wife also recently benefited from TCM. So we have two provinces, BC and Ontario, has regulated colleges for TCM and acupuncture. So can I have a commitment from Health Canada that going forward, when you tying up or you fine-tuning your licensing and labeling, can you consult with the provinces and in MP Desjardins' case and territory governments when it comes to labeling and licensing traditional health products? Is that a yes?
So that is a yes. So I'll just elaborate by saying that we do engage with a range of stakeholders, and that includes provincial regulators.
Excellent.
Thank you. That's your time. And Mr. Dong, I'm glad you clarified that TCM is traditional Chinese medicine. I thought it might be a cannabis product. So thank you for that. We're entering now our fourth and final round, returning to the official opposition. Mr. Lawrence, you have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Yeah, I'm just going to ask a quick question, and I'll pass it on to my colleague, Mr. Patzer. When I was asking earlier about the inspection of facilities, and it was 35, 17, 35, or something like that. How many facilities or manufacturers are there in Canada that should be expected to be, how many should be inspected? Like, what's the denominator?
So maybe I can take this opportunity just to let the member know, and thank you for the question, Chair. I did misspeak earlier. In excuse me, 2020, the number would have been 23 inspections. Maybe I can turn to Pam on the number of site license holders. That is who would fall within the scope of an inspection program.
Yeah, and I'm just madly searching for my numbers, but it is approximately 800 site license holders.
So I'll turn it over to Mr. Patzer, but I'll just make a quick comment that at 30 or so per year, we wouldn't circle through all of them in many decades there. So that might be an area of concern that I would point out to the public health.
Thank you. Mr. Patzer, you have 3.5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I just going to want to pick up on a theme I was working on earlier in regards to, standardized regulations, because it references in Section 2.23 that Health Canada relied on inspections such as drug inspections performed by domestic and regulatory authorities from other countries when licensing these sites. But however, we found the department did not have assurance that 10 of these 13 sites follow good manufacturing practices because the department did not have evidence that these inspections include the natural health product lines. So, and just kind of going along the theme of trying to make sure we have equal regulations and processes in place, Health Canada doesn't have a program to conduct routine on-site inspections for manufacturing sites, but yet Australia and Europe do. So why is there a gap there, especially when we're relying on other countries? If we're trying to streamline and standardize these regulations, there appears to be some existing gaps. So I'm just wondering if there's some comments there.
Thank you, Chair, for the question. So 2 parts to that question. In terms of a standardized set of regulations, what I would use as the comparator, almost a gold standard in the drug world, we have good manufacturing practices. There are a large community of countries in the world that follow the same standard practice, and that has allowed us to rely on mutual recognition quite heavily. In the natural health product space, although there is progress in this area, all countries that you would think of that may usually collaborate and cooperate, there is still some differences in the regulatory framework and how natural health products are regulated, even what they're called. As the member points out, however, there are jurisdictions, and I would put us with our plans for an inspection program in that group, that are leading the work to get to the point on NHPs that we are at with drugs, and to fill the gap that the member mentions. The ideal outcome would be we get to a place, including with a proactive inspection program, that lets us make use at some point in the future of mutual recognition agreements to also include NHPs.
Okay, I got one more question I really want to get here. And it's in regard to just confidence in the products. We've identified risks, and it's going to take time to address those risks, but it doesn't change the fact Canadians are buying those products today. But the report also shows in Section 2.39 that Health Canada did not know where all licensed products were manufactured. It also kind of goes on to say that fewer than 5% of all active product license holders told the department which licensed facilities manufactured their products before selling them. So there seems to be some, again, just issues. How do we make sure that Canadians are confident in the products they're buying when there's so many holes, there's so many gaps and so many issues, whether it be contaminated products, expired products, and just not even knowing where these products are manufactured or where they're coming from?
Yeah, so perhaps I can start, and thank you for the question. And so what you've noted in Section 2.39, we recognize that there is a gap, and we are already taking steps to address this, which includes updating our product license application forms, and that includes information to collect site information as part of the application. And at the same time, we're working on longer-term solutions to incorporate this requirement in the regulations.
Thank you very much. That is the time for you for today. Turning now to MP Dong, and I understand you'll be sharing part of your time with our NDP colleagues. So over to you.
Yes, Chair. Thank you very much. I just want to stress the point that although the question's being pretty, tough to the officials from Health Canada, but I still want to stress the point that we need to strike a balance on this because, I think the report says over 70% of Canadians are using these products, range of the product that we're talking about today. At the same time, there's a thriving market. So your role is very important to strike that balance. We don't want too heavy-handed, government intervention because that will drive the market into the black market, especially when it comes to, health products. And so so I just want to make sure that this point gets across. I hear that I think that in the perfect world, we have the consumers understanding what kind of licensing they're looking for, what kind of product that needs licensing. For importers, they'll have the same information, and when they apply for license, the processing time is reasonable. So there is encouragement for them to go through that channel. So I'm going to ask you what kind of public education program or campaign that you are doing or you are planning to do. And then I'll give the rest of my time to my NDP colleague. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question, and all very good points. And I'll just particularly emphasize your point in taking a balanced approach. And as I had mentioned earlier, we certainly do consult broadly with stakeholders. I mentioned provinces and territories, but all stakeholders to make sure that that we take that balanced approach. In terms of education, so that is also a very important part in making sure that information is readily available. And as I had mentioned, in terms specifically with the report, one of the findings was around our approach in following up on serious health risks once they're identified. And so we are proposing several tools to help strengthen our ability to both deter these and make the information available when we're addressing non-compliance. And
I'm sorry, I want to make sure my colleague has time. I just want you to tell us to commit to at least considering public education campaign so broader public understand the risk and the benefits. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Over to you, Mr. Desjardins.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank my colleague, Han Dong, for allowing me to spend additional time to really start a discussion continue a discussion that was actually started by my colleague, Nathalie St. Clair de Gagné, which was related to products that have affected, in her instance, pregnant women. And I think that women in particular, or gender diverse people, have a disproportionate impact when it comes to health products because they're looking for products in many ways that are unique, not just to their gender, but maybe even to their success in fulfilling their own identity. I think of the trans community or the two-spirit community in particular, and I think of gender-affirming surgeries for that fact. But there's an immense amount of products that are coming into Canada in the last 24 months related to persons who are transitioning, and we're often seeing doctors referring to non-prescription drugs in some instances to help them in their recovery. There's no labeling for this. There's no information. I've talked to youth in GSAs across Alberta, and they're scared about this fact that they don't know what they're taking, and they don't understand how some of this relates to their healing process, and they're really concerned mostly with hormone therapy. And I know hormone therapy is something that is regulated by Health Canada, but there's other supplementary drugs that exist on the market that have to do with understanding other hormones other than testosterone, for example, or estrogen. And so how do we protect those groups, particularly given the gender-based analysis that Health Canada is committed to, and understanding product labeling? Is there room to ensure that there's a gender-based analysis for that labeling for particularly women in the trans community?
So thank you for the question, and I think you've really captured well some of the complexities in this area. But what I will just mention is yes, we are committed to looking at all that we do through the SGBA plus lens in how we regulate all of our health products. So not just natural health products, but across the spectrum of products that we regulate for health and safety.
Thanks so much. I also would like to yield the remainder of my time to my colleague at the block. We're sharing a bit of time here, so Natalie, I'd like to share some time.
Très bien. Alors ça vous donne.
Very good. That leaves you 5 minutes. Thank you to my colleagues all around the table for sharing the time. So I'll come back to my question about focusing on prevention rather than reacting to problems. What I understood from the report is that there were a number of complaints which were then addressed. There were a number of issues raised such as labeling, but also considering online ads and all of that type of thing. Now, for all of this, will we be focusing on prevention rather than just reaction?
Oui, je pense que.
Yes, thank you for the question. I think that I can answer in the affirmative. All of our answers to the report and all of the measures that we're taking are intended to work together. So we have a framework for self-care products. And it's really for the people who use these self-care products or who are considering buying these alternative products. And with this framework, we will ensure that there is a concerted effort to better protect the health of Canadians, including more vulnerable populations. Perfect, thank you. And how would you adapt that strategy? You know, when you see that in the report, less than 5% of site holders indicated the source or the provenance of these products to Health Canada. Yeah, thank you for the follow-up. Certainly, the department has already started taking steps to deal with that gap that you identified and which was also identified in the report. We are updating our system to get information about sites. At the same time, as was mentioned, we're also working on longer-term solutions to address that problem. As a follow-up, when will that system be implemented? When will it be operational? Thank you for the question. As was mentioned in the report, our management response system and our action plan are working on that. There are a number of possible solutions. So to take labeling, for example, we're moving forward with those changes. It was introduced in the Canada Gazette last spring, and we intend to move forward with that this spring. Sorry, this spring, as in now, because we're currently in the spring, or are you referring to next year? No, this spring. Okay, so starting now. That's great. Yes, very soon. Great. I think I still have 1 minute. So To talk more specifically about products that come from abroad, my colleague across the way talked a bit about traditional Chinese medicine. How would you control or verify the authenticity of these products that come from abroad, particularly if we don't know the origin or the way in which they were manufactured? So, yes, thank you for the question. As far as products from other countries are concerned, we have the same assurances as for other products arriving from abroad. Now, in terms of those traditional products you mentioned, we're working on a number of preventative strategies in an effort to better support Canadians. We proposed various solutions like changing labeling to make it very clear that everything is legible and easy to understand. So that could help Canadians make better choices when they're buying these products.
Thank you. And I thank all the witnesses for appearing today. I'm pleased we managed to make it through all the rounds of questions as well as the question that I was able to ask as well. Just to wrap up here and remind members that we'll be reviewing follow-up responses from the government to recommendations that the committee has previously requested. A document prepared by the analyst was distributed Tuesday afternoon. And this follow-up is a very important aspect of the committee's work. This is when we look at responses that we've received from the government to requests we've made to ensure they are fulsome responses that we are satisfied with. So on that note, I will excuse the witnesses. Thank you. If there's no other business to come forward, I see none, so I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone.